Hi, the Mudbrooker here. Have you ever heard of death by chocolate? Well, that ain't what we're making tonight. Instead, we're going to make a dish that has so much swiny goodness in it, I call it death by pig. And as always, the first and most important ingredient in any recipe is alcohol, so tonight I find myself in a persistent bourbon frame of mind. Glug, glug, glug. Good. But let's begin. I'm not going to give you any specific quantities for this recipe because it mostly varies according to how big of a baking dish you use. This is a 3-quart baking dish, fairly deep. It's about 10 inches by 10 inches. And I'm going to cover the bottom of it with boneless pork loin chops. I've trimmed all the fat off of these, and you want to arrange them in there to completely cover the bottom of the baking dish. Get all these in there in a nice single layer. This is probably about 2 pounds worth, give or take. What I do is I buy whole pork loins when they're on sale, and they're usually on sale pretty cheap, and I just cut them into chops and throw them in the freezer. Next, we're going to want to pepper that good, but no salt. We're going to get plenty of salt from the other ingredients, so you don't want to go adding any salt to the pork chops. Nicely peppered. Next, this is 3 cans worth of small pitted black olives that I gave a coarse chop in my food processor. You can chop them by hand if you want, but don't buy the canned chopped black olives because they are hugely expensive for what little you get, and they really ain't worth messing with. Just buy the whole olives and chop them up yourself. Spread that around, get a nice layer of them going. Set that aside. Next, cheese. I have mozzarella and some Colby. Again, I don't know, I got maybe 3 cups here, but I don't know if I'll use it all. Get a good layer going on there. Yeah, I can use that all. Get in there. Kind of pack it down a little bit. And some of the Colby. Stomp her down a little bit. And lastly, bacon. And a word about the bacon. Do not use cheap bacon. You will come to regret it. The $1.99 mostly fat, paper-thin bacon you're going to get in the discount bin at your Walmart just ain't worth messing with. Go to the butcher shop, get yourself some good bacon. If you can get some back bacon, that's even better. Put it on top and overlap it slightly, because it will shrink a little bit. Even though this is good bacon, it's still going to shrink some. You cover the top of that with our bacon. That was 1 pound. Got another pound here. And I'll need a little bit from this one. Just enough to cover my sides good. Alright, push that down. So that's a pound and a little bit more of bacon. Again, this is going to vary depending on how big your baking dish is. A little bit more pepper on top. And this will go into a 350-degree oven for 45 minutes. And that's all there is to that. I'll be back in a little while when I take it out and show you the next step. One other thing, you may have noticed something ticking in the background. Give me a second and I'll show you what that is. Right there is the source of the ticking. I would love to tell you what's in there, but you'll have to wait until my next thrilling video to find out what it is. But I'll tell you now, it ain't a turkey. Alrighty, I just took this out of the oven. It is cooked, but we're not quite done yet. Since this is packed in there pretty tight, there's not a lot of room for the juice to go. You get a little grease from the bacon, a little juice from the pork chops, and quite a bit of moisture from the olives. And for our next step, I don't want my bacon to be awash. So, I will very carefully see if I can spoon off a little bit of the liquid. There's not really as much as you would think because it's bubbling up around the sides. But like I say, it doesn't really have anywhere else to go. What I'm going to do, once I get rid of some of this excess, is put this back in the oven under the broiler for a couple of minutes and crispify the bacon. And a couple more spoons ought to do it. And this smells just fantastic. Okay, you can see there's still a little bit of juice around the sides, but you don't want to take all the juice out of it because you'll have taken away all of your juicy goodness. I'm going to throw this under the broiler for a bit and we'll be back. Alrighty, you have to keep a real close eye on this when you're broiling it because it'll go from nice and crispy to burnt black in no time at all. I'm going to leave this sit for 15 minutes, come back, cut a slice, and show you what you end up with. I'll see you then. Alrighty, this has been resting for about 15 minutes, and I'm going to chop me off a piece. The easiest way to do it is to hold your bacon down with a spatula. You want to be sure that you cut all the way through the pork chops on the bottom. One tough little spot there it doesn't want to cut. And of course, being the first piece, ooh, look at that cheese, this is probably going to be a pain to dig out, but I'll give her a shot. A lot of juice. Now that is, hush you, that is juice, that isn't grease. And it's gonna fight me. Ah! But, there we go. Nice and cheesy. Not quite as pretty of a job as I was hoping to do. But you can see, if it hadn't fallen apart, you got a nice layer of cheese, a nice layer of black olives, bacon on top, pork chops on the bottom, and it is absolutely delicious. So, that is how you make death by pig.